I'm just going to set the context, which really is the topic, and let each of the panelists really delight you with words of wisdom from their own sphere, and probably some excerpts from the books. When we were thinking about this session, we said, certainly youth affairs is a very important area in the realm of non-fiction as a subgenre, and more so important for India because we are a very young country in terms of our youth population, in terms of the so-called demographic dividend that we hope we will reap in the next 10 to 20 years. We are also a very young democracy, a young republic, so having gained independence, 66 years ago. So there's many connotations to the word young in India. So when I say India and it's young, as the topic reads, I think there are several layers and layers which I'm sure our panelists will help us discover today. We are privileged to have a very diverse panel, a very accomplished panel. So as we all heard, Ms. Ashraf Patel, runs an NGO, has come from a corporate background, has written a book which, and all of this, focuses a lot around what the youth can do in terms of politics and the business of politics, voting, elections, etc. Mr. Sanjay Kumar, as we've all learnt, he's got phenomenal experience and expertise in trying to understand models of predicting voter behavior and what drives elections in this country. And particularly interesting to me is that next year, the general elections, if I'm not wrong, India will have the single largest ever voting population, which is first-time voters, single largest youth population in the world of first-time voters. We have Anjaneya Mishra here, who is a youth author and a young author, so not just writing for the youth, but somebody who belongs in that category. And whilst he's not writing about politics per se or elections, I think his book and his take is on the multifarious issues that teenagers and the youth today are dealing with at their residence, in careers, in their aspirations, relationships, the way they feel they are, understood or misunderstood. We will have a fifth person here, Ms. Nisha Singh, who is a politician in Gurgaon. She's the municipal councillor for one of the councils in Gurgaon. She left a career in corporates. She holds an MBA from the London Business School and several years of high-flying corporate expertise and a career to come down to Gurgaon and engage in local politics. So without further ado, I will open it up to Ashraf, being the lady on the panel, to go ahead and take it away.
Good evening, everybody. And I want to, before I start, I have been introduced as the author of Ocean in a Drop, but there are two co-authors and there's another author. So I just want to, since they're here, I just want to point them out. Arjun Shekhar and Meenu Venkatesham, if you can raise your hands, they're also co-authors of the book. And Kamini is not here. So just want to bring that. Okay, so we are talking about young people, and I just want to start with a small question to you all. And if you could just sit back, reflect, and I want you to think of your first crush, or the first time when you fell in love. And everybody here, young and old, just think about it for a minute. Think about the first time that you questioned your parents on anything, something really strongly you felt about. And think about now the first time that you protested against something that you felt strongly for, particularly about an injustice done to somebody else outside your community, somebody who was a little bit distant from you. Many of these experiences, correct me if I'm wrong, many of these experiences we would have had. Some of you are young here in age and others who are young at heart but have been youth. So all of us have been young people at some point or the other. And some of our most defining experiences happen when we are young. So if I was to describe youth as, amongst many other things, youth is also a stage of an identity quest that comes out of these very first experiences. They may be of any kind, but they form our defining impressions, and they form the start of the journey of the self. So that's why youth is a very important stage in life. And if youthhood is a quest for identity, then it's important for us all to really understand how best this identity can be shaped. There's a beautiful quote. It's Buddha's quote, and the quote goes like this: "The foot feels the foot when it hits the ground. The foot feels the foot only when it hits the ground." In a very beautiful way, indicating that the journey of the self can best happen in the context of the real world. You can only connect to yourself if you can connect with the real world. As we talk about the real world, what is this real world of a young person? In the book, Ocean in a Drop, we look at the spaces that are legitimized for young people, and we've identified 4 key spaces. One, that of the family, which is very important. Second, that of friends. Third, which is a big space, that is of education and livelihood. And fourth, that is broadly, loosely defined as leisure and entertainment, which will include sports and such other things. If these are the 4 big spaces that young people occupy, let us see how these spaces actually nurture the self and how are they constructed. If you look at all of these 4 spaces, they definitely define the journey of the young person. But a lot of these spaces are driven by, are actually governed by adults. They are not governed by young people, particularly the space of the family and the space of education and livelihood. It's a space where the rules are laid out by some other people. They are already laid out. The second thing about some of these spaces, again, the space of the family and education and livelihood, this space is often driven by results you're expected to achieve. Let's take the space of leisure and entertainment. Often it can be pure amusement. And sometimes even in the space of friends, we find that there's a lot of peer pressure. So in all of these 4 spaces, there is certainly a lot of defining and shaping of the self, but there are also many constraints. In the book, we articulate the need to create a 5th space, a space where young people actually discover themselves through working in social change, social action, where they go out into the real world and work in experience and experiment in and take leadership in social change projects and personal experiments. This is what we are calling the 5th space. And we feel this is the 5th space that will allow, if we strengthen this 5th space and mainstream it and bring it into the space of family, friends, and educational livelihood, this is the space where young people will discover the journey from self to society, which will truly nurture a wholesome self that contributes to also the making of a better world. So just broadly, this is really what the book is about. And Prava as an organization and Community, the Youth Collective, 2 organizations that I represent, is really about inviting young people to engage in social action, but not for volunteering alone. It is social action which actually inspires them to learn about themselves. So there is a whole cycle where we connect the self to society. And this is done through working in rural areas, taking social action projects, volunteering, self-reflection, leadership camps, and a lot of work on the self. Today's topic is about young people in politics. So I actually want to introduce to you a small experiment on how, what we've started engaging in is how to make politics a 5th space. Now, politics is considered a really dirty word. And there's a hesitation for people to get into this. And why is this? In the book, we trace back and we actually study some of the experiences of young people in politics over the years. Let's go back to the freedom movement. We know that there were a lot of young people's participation in that, and some statistics may be interesting to you. Immediately after we got our independence, the first Lok Sabha had 26% youth participation. By youth participation, I mean young people in the age group of 25 to 40. So in the first Lok Sabha, we had 26% young people. In the second Lok Sabha, it rose to 32%. Any guesses for what it was at the start of this current Lok Sabha, the youth representation? Any guesses? Especially those, sorry? 8%, 10%? Very close, yes. It was at the start 6.3%. So what is really this mystery that from 26% to 32%, we come down to 6.3% at the start of this Lok Sabha? There's another piece of statistic which may be of interest to you. The first cabinet, the average age was 52. Current cabinet, the average age is 64. It's quite clearly showing, Kumar mentioned that we are one of the youngest nations, but we are one of the youngest nations, but we have one of the oldest cabinets. So there's a hint here that if we don't put young people in leadership and governance roles, if we don't put decision making in their hands, then it's likely, in a way, what we are doing is we are instrumentalizing young people. They are part of the process. They can participate, but they are not there where it really matters. It's a small experiment that we are doing right now. I'd like to share. It is to try and turn the tide, if I may say in a small way, is a campaign we are just starting and would like to share with you. It's called My Space, My Unmanifesto. It's a campaign which is led by about 40 to 50 youth-led organizations across the country. These are organizations working on different issues and with all sorts of young people. These are organizations that work with rural, urban, different caste groups, across gender and across different regions and regional divides. So the idea is to bring a whole cross-section of young people together and youth-led organizations. And it's called My Space, My Unmanifesto because it came out from this, inspired from Alice in Wonderland's idea of unbirthdays, if you've heard. Alice liked the idea of why should we celebrate birthdays only on that one day of the year? Why not every day? So why not celebrate unbirthdays and celebrate a birthday every year? So this unmanifesto, the word, is essentially to communicate this inspiration that we wish to create amongst all of us, and particularly the young people and the youth community that we work with, is how do we become everyday politicians? Why is politics only about voting? And why is politics only then is something we participate in only once in 5 years? So the idea is that what young people are now doing, I'm just sharing, is the youth-led organizations across the country are directly going out to cities, to villages, to schools, to colleges, to communities, to padas, and trying to draw out young people to share about their aspirations, what they wish to see, what kind of country they wish to shape, but also what they are learning from this experience and what they wish to learn about politics. So the whole idea of the fifth space is not just to do action, but to learn, to reflect, and to truly embed it into one's experience so that it becomes part of a lifelong learning experience. Therefore, we are reaching out about, the plan is, the campaign has just recently started. 14 lakh young people will be reached out to through online and on-ground engagement. The idea is to get them to actually engage with manifestos. Manifesto making is the most powerful engagement and possibly a small way in which people can participate in decision-making process. So the idea is to understand what is this manifesto making process. The idea is that 1 lakh young people actually share what promises they wish for the politicians to take on. And the idea is to monitor it till the elections and to actually see which parties actually take these promises, make these promises, commit to these promises. So the idea is not just to say something, but actually to monitor what actually turns on the ground, and therefore somewhere be influenced and inspired not to just vote for a particular group, but vote for where the commitments that you wish, that we wish politicians to keep, that those commitments are reflected in the manifestos. So this is one of the campaigns that we are doing, and it's going across 15 states, and it will be both online and offline. This is one of the experiments that I'm sharing, and I want to share how is it different from how we want to make it different and how we must make it different when we work with young people, and that's what Ocean in a Drop is about, and I'm going to end with this. Ocean in a Drop is, as the name suggests, we often ask young people to go out there and do their bit, to contribute their drop into the ocean. Ocean in a Drop tries to turn that around and says that we as young people or facilitators of young people, all of us work with young people. Either we are young people ourselves or we work with young people or play with them as parents, as teachers, as educators, as employers. We are all engaged with young people, and we ourselves may be young. Ocean in a Drop is about understanding and respecting that in every young person there is this ocean. And we need to engage with the whole and the fullness of the young person. And how do we create experiences for young people on their identity quest so that their identity is full and wholesome, that's something connected to society. And this can be done if we ensure that there are spaces, fifth spaces everywhere for them to experiment, to actually take leadership, to make their own rules, to have fun, and to learn about their own lives and lives of other people that are so different from them right now, and break the boundaries that come between us. That's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Ashraf, for sharing some of the brilliant ideas and experiments that you all are undertaking. I think that's a good cue-in to bring in Mr. Sanjay Kumar on the business around the elections and looking at voter behavior and polling. Sir?
I work with a research institute which is named Center for the Study of Developing Societies. And as Kumar already mentioned, that we do a lot of research on elections, trying to understand voting behavior, how do people vote, why people vote. But some time back, which was in the year 2006 and 7, we conducted a special study on youths, trying to look at attitudes, perceptions, anxieties, aspirations of Indian youths, using survey as a method. And that book came out in 2009 from SAGE. I don't have a copy of this book right now. It was called Indian Youth in a Transforming World, Attitudes and Perception. And after that, that book had a chapter on looking at youth and elections, youth and electoral politics. Rest other chapters were on anxieties, aspiration, attitudes, various other things. And then we realized that the book was not trying to tell us sufficiently about youth's engagement with politics. Neither was the large-scale survey which we are doing. When we used to pick up slices of youth from the national surveys, was telling us in details about youth engagement with politics. And after this 2009 elections, there was a lot of noise about large number of young MPs in the parliament. And these were all journalistic impression, because when we actually counted, Ashraf has already mentioned the figures to you. When we actually counted, it's a simple count. What you can do, you can look at the age of the MP in the first Lok Sabha election, second, third, fourth. This simple research, and the simple research indicated that actually it has not gone up, it has gone down. So in 2009 elections, in the parliament, there were less number of young MPs. And when I say young MPs, these are in the range of age of 25 to 40. So we realized that the proportion of young MPs has gone down compared to the first, second, third Lok Sabha election. So why was this all news about large number of young MPs getting into the parliament, mainly because if we look at the profile of these young MPs, large number of them, 70% of them actually came from a political family. Don't want to name people, but you look at the young MP, list of young MPs, and 70% of them belong to some political family, somebody's son, somebody's daughter, somebody's. So that was this, their stature in the parliament was making news, nor the number they were in the parliament was making news. So we started doing a careful study after that. We initiated a project in CSDS, developed a team, and then tried to look at the relations of youth with elections. And the basic questions we wanted to analyze was, does youth vote more or compared to other age groups? Is there a motivation for the youth to vote for young candidates? So there were several questions which we tried to engage with in that study. And what we did, we picked up randomly some of the constituencies where young MP got elected or the young candidate was the runner-up. And there were 140 constituencies of that kind in the country, from where either a young MP got elected. There were 79 young MPs in the parliament, and rest others were runner-up out of these 140. So we did a careful study of that, and finally, the net result of this study is this book came out only yesterday, and I got the copy just now from the stall of the Sage. So this is the study which came out based on, this is the book which came out on that study, and we have tried to look at, I've tried to look at these various issues of youth's engagement with politics. And what I will do, I would just try and pick up few things. I'm not going to tell you in details about the book. We can have some discussion about that. What are the questions, what are the current questions which concerns everyone, or the questions which is being talked about, debated these days about youth? One is, first, why there is so much of focus about youth and politics in India now? These days we are having assembly elections, and next year we have Lok Sabha elections. And we know that most of the political parties are trying to mobilize the youth vote. And why? Because even Kumar cited the data, which is to say, in the forthcoming election, Lok Sabha elections, the number of young voters in the elections are going to be much bigger than the votes polled by the biggest party in 2009, which is to say the Congress polled less vote compared to the number of voters, young voters in the 2014 elections. So that is making news that they are going to be, and when I say first time voters, these would be in the age group of 18 to 22. They are going to be roughly about 12 crore voters in this age group, and the Congress got less than 12 crore votes in 2009. So the whole idea is, everybody is thinking that if these youth, young voters can make and demolish a political party. So that's making big news, and that is why we see lot of focus about young voters, youth voters in the present election also, and in the forthcoming Lok Sabha elections. But the question is, I would say, only looking at the size, are they important? Are these young voters important? If they were, and the misconception is that this is not the first election where we would have such a large number of young voters. This is normally a demographic thing. Every election has sizable number of young voters, so there shouldn't be so much of noise about young voters. So this whole idea that young voters are going to do wonders in the 2014 elections is all misconceived. It's not true that the numbers are right, but it's not that they would actually bring a lot of change in the political system. And why do I say that? The second question, are they electorally important? They are not electorally very, very significant. And why do I say that? First, enrollment ratio. We have done various research, and we have figured out that the proportion of young voters, young people getting enrolled in the voter list is less compared to if you look at people in the middle age group or older age group. So if out of 100 people in the age group, young age group, many of them are not enrolled as the voters. So if you are not enrolled, you can keep participating in protest movement, you can keep participating in election campaign, but when it comes to voting, your name is not there in the electoral roll. So even if you are there in You are there in the society, but when it comes to voting, you are not enrolled as a voter, so you don't have a chance to vote. So that is why they don't form significant part. These 12 crore figures are from the census. They're taking the census that this is the growth of the young population. But we really don't have the figure whether how many of them are enrolled as the voter. So that is one big problem. The second is, even among those who are enrolled as voter, and this is based on the various studies which we have conducted, even among those young people who are enrolled as voter, studies have indicated since 1996, there have been 5 national elections, 96, 98, 99, 2004 and 2009. Every election has witnessed lower turnout of young voters compared to the average voter. And this is true for the assembly elections as well, which is to say, to give you a just rough example, out of 100 people who are to vote, so the national turnout is 58%, the turnout among youth is about 5 or 6% less, which would be about 52, 53%. And this is consistent over last 5 Lok Sabha elections and also in various assembly elections. So there is double marginalization. One, many youth are not enrolled as voter, and among those who are enrolled as voter, many of them don't turn up to vote. So that's the big problem with regard to, even if you are in big size, your numbers are very big, you are sizable in number, but the problem is that there is lower enrollment ratio, and also who are enrolled, they don't turn up to vote. So this is the other problem. The other issue is about, even if suppose we imagine they vote, they all turn up to vote, can they make huge difference? Studies have indicated that when it comes to voting, they are as divided. Youth are still not a category called youth. When it comes to voting, they remain as divided as voters of other age group with regard to their caste, education, occupation, all other variables or other factors which work for voters of any other age group, that applies to youth as well. It's not that if you look at the issues, if you look at the choice of leadership, there is hardly any difference with regard to youth vis-a-vis other age group. If the choice of one leader is 20% among other age group, even among the youth, even if the leader is a young one, even among the youth, the choice for that leader or the preference for that leader is more or less the same. So we don't find any difference or only marginal difference when it comes to attitudes, opinions, or choices about political parties, candidates, issues, when you compare the youth with other age group of voters. So these are the 3 issues, but are there only negative things about youth? No, I don't want to end my short note with only negatives. As you would see, the title of this book is Indian Youth and Electoral Politics, and finally there is a subtitle which says An Emerging Engagement. No, everything is not negative. There we find an emerging engagement of the youth in politics. If we look at proportion of youths participating in protest movement, we see a rise in the proportion of youths who are participating in protest movement. Not only in protest movement, if we look at the proportion of youth participating in election campaign, there is an upsurge. And the biggest thing is that when we look at youths support for the ideas of various kinds of electoral reforms, while youth gets divided when it comes to voting, but on the issues of electoral reforms, whether there should be right to recall, right to reject, etc., they all seem to be gelling together. And that is why I say there is an emerging engagement. While they may not be voting in big numbers, but there is an engagement which is coming, and in future we might see youth emerging as a political category, which is still not a political category. Thank you.
So, since we are on the subject of elections and politics, with a lot of stats, good moment to bring in Ms. Nisha Singh, whom, as I had mentioned earlier, is a young politician in Gurgaon. She left a successful corporate career with some leading multinationals to take up active politics, and in many ways would answer a lot of questions related to youth involvement in active politics and probably, reaching, the cabinet one day. So Nisha, please.
So I should start by apologizing for being late. I should have planned for the unpredictability of the traffic The community at large doesn't matter so much. Everybody breaks rules. You're lucky if you break a few and don't get caught. Second narrative, politics is dirty, politicians are dirty. It's not for sophisticated and evolved person like us. Bureaucracy is corrupt. All government departments are corrupt. The system is bad, but we have to play along. You know, what can we do as helpless citizens? We are just helpless in the system. The last one. Yes, the country is facing enormous challenges: lack of food, health facilities, civic sense, poverty, crime, governance. But someone else needs to take charge. After all, we are not running the country. The popular narratives for the bureaucracy in our country. The janta is provided for by us. They don't need to know things. The nosy Parkers, the NGO types, the Jholawala types, the types who are sitting here will tire out one day. ऐसा ही हुआ है. The popular narratives of the politician. I have been elected. I have the mandate. I need not engage in any dialogue with anybody. What do people know about running a government? I need not hold myself accountable to anyone. Plus, I know how to win elections. And that is what matters in a democracy. You know, I think you will agree that these are the kind of popular narratives that all of us have grown up with in our country. But slowly and surely things are changing. There is a new kind of engagement, and Sir just talked about an engagement, evolving engagement. I think we are asking a lot more questions about saying that these narratives can be changed within our own life. We need not just now give in to them, accept them and live our lives the way we have. And we're saying we're more responsible for our actions and more accountable for our own actions, or let's say non-actions till now. So for me, I think that's the promise of young India. And when I look at who is driving this change, I observe that a lot of it is driven by the young people. And that's because that they're realizing that they're inheriting an India which is being held back by its own people. And this is not acceptable to them. So, and the social media, which is where a lot of this engagement is happening, and somebody talked about demonstrations and, coming out on the road, and the social media is providing a very good platform to people to say that, look, listen to me, I have an opinion, and I'm going to tell you, and you will have to listen. And this message, because of these new forms of media, is spreading far and wide. So when an incident like a Delhi rape happened, or there were cartoonists who were jailed, arrested, then the Palghar girls, they put some comment on Facebook and there was an arrest. There's an instant revolt. You know, people are shocked. People are angry. They are ashamed. And they are coming out and expressing these feelings quite openly. Now, what somebody like me needs, and all of us need, is for this expression to now change into active engagement with politics. Because at the end of the day, we are part of a democracy, and any change that you want to bring out, which is sustainable, far-reaching, that can have impact, has to come through the process of electoral politics. And so, what do young people have to do? And this, I think, is a natural progression of this aggression and this kind of feelings that we are seeing in different in platform. It will happen. It's a very natural thing to happen. It will happen. I I think so, and how the young people can, participate or go through this process is to start taking leadership roles in the community and in the area that they are in. And the platform that Ashraf just mentioned seems to be an excellent place. I mean, I didn't know this existed. And here it is, somebody's already thought about it and saying, let's form a platform to have this kind of leadership engagement into the community. But then, how do you become knowledgeable and effective? There has to be a learning process. If it's about young people are learning about different things, whether it's their job, whether it's education. You start from a process. And we keep looking at the Lok Sabha figures a lot because, MP is a very glamorous role. But I think we need to start looking at the local government figures also. Because you don't become a CEO as you start. You don't go class 12, you start with nursery. So the place to start, I think, for the young people is at the local government level. It's at your city level, at your village level, at your town level. And you learn the ropes, you understand what governance is, you understand what politics is, you understand, what it takes to build a road. What are the government departments? What are the, how does the process function? How does the file move? What is the structure? So to understand that, I think a good place to start is the local place. You learn there, and it need not really be that you one day have to be the MP or the MLA. No, there's lots to do within this role also. Everybody is not going to be the CEO of the company, right? But that doesn't mean that, the managers are not important. So that's what I want to say. I think the young people should equip with themselves with the knowledge of our democracy. And yeah, so I'll end here, and that's what I want to say. I think I want young Indians to do lots of politics, more and more politics, and drive this country to the next phase of growth and prosperity. Thank you.
Thank you, Nisha. So we have our final panelist, Anjaneya Mishra, the lone youth and young author on the panel.
My distinguished co-panelists have really made some solid points about youth and politics, and how politics and youth have never really they have gone hand in hand together a long time back, but now they don't seem to be having much of an impact with us. To that, I would say youth and politics will always go hand in hand, because whatever policy you may make today, it'll affect the youth tomorrow. I mean, they are the ones who have to live with the consequences of it. So when you actually think about making policies and governance, then you have to take into consideration the people who are going to live with it tomorrow. I was called distinguished. That's not an adjective that I'm used to. Generally, people of my age are not distinguished. And as far as I can see, I would not have the hubris to say that I am a representative of the youth today. But I do have a very good idea of what we want. And we want a country that we can be proud of. We want a country that when we go outside, when we see other countries, we go to them and then we can say, our country is better than yours. We actually want leaders that we can have faith in, that we connect to. We don't want somebody who's just come up from nowhere and who makes false promises. We want somebody with accountability. And there has been a recent crisis of faith in our governance. The leadership of this country does not have the support of the youth anymore. We believe that there are issues that could be handled in a much better fashion, and we are not afraid to show that. As my distinguished co-panelist, he provided us with a lot of facts. And most of them pointed to the fact that the youth are not participating in the election process, maybe it's because we don't think this is the time to, participate in the election process. Maybe we want to learn more and become better as a whole class and educate ourselves, equip ourselves for tomorrow. Because how can you lead someone if you don't have substance inside of you? How can you tell somebody what to do, and how can you take a decision for someone else when you don't know what to do yourself? But we are taking cognizance of the actions that our political leaders are taking for us. We rise up, we oppose them, and we do support them when the time isn't right. We do voice our opinion, and now it's easier than ever. An entire revolution took place in a 2,000-year-old society in Egypt, and it was only because of those people in the age group of 20 to 30 years old. They changed the government. They removed a dictator who's been controlling things with an iron fist for 30 years. And then you say that the youth are not participating. I'm sorry, I don't agree with that. I believe it is essential for the youth to bring cognizance to the facts of the things that we need, the things that we want in the future. We may not participate right now, but we will ensure that we get what is our birthright. And we want it. What ma'am said, we should do our bit for the society, for our class, and for our country. And I believe by educating ourselves, by taking part in the whole political drama, the debate, the spectacle that is there in front of us all, we're doing exactly that. We're doing our bit for the country. We're going out, we're telling people that, look here, this is what we want. This is what is required of you, and this is what needs to be done. Not tomorrow, not after you win the election, not after you fill your pockets, but right now. You need to stand here and not make empty promises to us. And if you do that, we will go out, we will protest, and we will let the whole world know what is right and what is not. What ma'am also said, governance at a local level. I believe that is of paramount importance, and I give a lot of cognizance to that fact. We need accountable governance at the grassroots. The panchayats need to be stronger. The local municipalities in the urban areas, they need to be very strong. Because if you don't have strong cells, you can never, ever have a strong body. You can never reach the heights that you were achieved for, and you will crumble just when you're near your goal. We need to start taking cognizance of what people are saying and when they're saying it. The fact that millions of teenagers went on the road to protest against rape, that is incredible. That is some solidarity. If you cannot take notice of that, then maybe we're ignorant of our own nation. Maybe we don't really understand what we are and our true identity. After all, being Indian means that you need to take responsibility for that adjective, because it has some meaning on it. You can't just go out and say, I'm Indian, and it has no significance in life. When it comes to the youth and the things that they do, education, drug abuse, their life inside their house, their families, the fundamental building block of this society. I believe that all these factors are probably more important to politics, to youth, to this country, than the actions that may be taken outside. Because any child, any teenager, any youth, and even after you become an adult, your main focus, your main learning is always from the cohesive family unit that you inhabit in. That'll be your first mode of instruction, your parents. So what they believe in, how they handle you, is extremely important. And I believe that we are misunderstood. You hear a lot of debate, especially when the rape case happened, about how women dress immorally. What is immoral dressing exactly? What is it to dress immorally? Doesn't everybody have a right to dress the way they want to? Isn't that a basic intrinsic right of yours? Why is it that the women of, let's say, my generation, or maybe slightly older than me, why are they so misunderstood? Why is it that the older people, the older stalwarts of our country will say that today's generation, there seems to be a lot of perverseness? I actually heard this, in fact, these exact words to a very eminent politician in Maharashtra. He said the same things to me. He asked me, why do you think there is so much perverseness in the youth today? And I ask you, is there really perverseness, or are the winds of change blowing? How will you quantify perverseness? What is perverse for you may actually be normal for somebody else. As long as you're not infringing on the rights of others, as long as you are not causing them any harm, I don't see why not you can engage in whatever activity you may wish to. And I don't understand why the activity that you may choose to engage in is taken as a justification for heinous crimes. You have people being killed for marrying the wrong person. You have people being raped for wearing the wrong clothes, apparently. And you have people being shunned for saying the wrong things. Of course, being accountable for what you say is very important, and I'm sure I'll probably face that after I leave the stage. But I think our freedom has been curbed, and we're fighting for it. We're fighting for it in whichever way we can, and we're rising up to the occasion. So despite the fact that many of my distinguished co-panelists may believe that we're not really doing much, we're actually doing everything we can, and we will continue to do everything we can to make this nation a place that is livable, a place that we can all be proud of. Thank you.
Thank you, Anjaneya. I was just joking with Nisha that we got a politician in the making. So, a leader in the making. The 2014 elections is,
If you can-
certainly.
If you can get me a ticket, I would love to participate.
Yeah. Well, you're in Delhi right now. Everything's up for sale.
We should probably set up some meetings then.
So, we don't have too much time, but I think we've had some interesting views from all the panelists. Since we are in election fever in Delhi right now, and very soon for the rest of the country, a single question to all the panelists: what do you think the role the youth will play in the upcoming elections, general elections, let's say? What do you think the role the youth will play? Not what it ought to play, not what it can play. What is your assessment of what's going to happen going forward? I will start with Nisha.
This is, I guess, what I hope and I believe, probably, as an outcome of how we have engaged so far in the coming years, in the past years, recent years. I feel we are going to see, some of these datas about youth being going on the similar lines of the adult when it comes to voting pattern. I do believe that the youth is beyond this kind of division. And if we can give them leaders who can, inspire them to not rely on these kind of, these kind of divisions, then they are the ones who are more likely to accept that. And because you see, they are not steeped in past. Okay, they are much more positive and much more wanting the governance to get better. And so I think, we might see some wonderful, wonderful things happening in, hopefully, I'm very, very hopeful, in the coming elections in the next 6 months. Yeah, that's what I think.
Great. So what we're hearing, you do see the youth playing a crucial role in the upcoming elections in terms of, voter behavior specifically. Great. Anjanya?
Okay, most of my speech was about the role youth will play in the elections. What I actually feel is that we'll hold the leaders of today accountable.
No, but will you vote? Will the youth have a good voter share? Will the youth have a good
will
voter
they
share?
actually go and vote in the voting booths?
Yeah. I mean, press the ballot button.
I hope they do. I really hope they do. I mean, if they do, then it will be a very significant change from what I've been hearing, all these years. Because I don't think it's been, I think you're right. I don't think it's been happening that often that the children, not children, but the youth will go and vote. Of course, they do vote, but not in very large numbers. But I think that now they feel that it is onto them to take on the mantle and actually bring about some change in our country. So yes, I'm very hopeful that they will go ahead and be responsible.
So when you say they, we also mean you.
Yeah, definitely.
You're a first-time
definitely,
voter
yes.
as well.
You will find me at the voting booth in South Bombay, for sure.
Great.
Yeah.
What I also wanted to just bring in here is, Mr. Sanjay Kumar, if I'm not wrong, this is the first major election where children of the post-liberalization or post-economic liberalization era will be coming and voting in full force, right? So with that economic liberalization also came the liberalization of mass media. And I think that has changed electoral politics significantly. So do you think that will also play a major role in this election?
See, as I indicated earlier, that up till 2009 elections, we have not seen any difference when it comes to voting or participation in election, comparing youth vis-a-vis any other age group of voters. But yes, at least the last couple of years have given signs of greater political mobilization of the youth, and also earlier the youth have remained divided between political parties when it comes to voting, as divided as voters of other age group, which is to say, if the voters of age group 35 and 45 have voted equally for two parties, even the youths have voted equally for those two parties. But last couple of years have seen some signs of different political preferences among the youth because of a different kind of political mobilization. To name the political party, a new political party which has come up in Delhi, at least up till now, studies indicate what will happen on the 4th of December, we don't know. We would get to know only on the 8th of December. But at least up till now, there are indications that one political party, the new political party, is more popular among the youth compared to the two other parties. So that is happening at least in Delhi. But nationally also, there is an indication that BJP is slightly becoming more popular among the youths compared to the Congress party. And this is again by the studies which has come up during last 6 months. What will happen between now and 2014 Lok Sabha elections, which take place in April, we don't know. But that is, we can see a clear a shift among youth's political orientation, which is political choices for parties. Previously they have remained divided, but we see that change is taking place in Indian politics.
I'm taking your first question
Right.
on what we are hoping and what might we see in this next 6 months regarding young people. So I'm not looking at voting, just coming out to vote alone as an indicator, nor necessarily what party. I think it'll be good for us to now start engaging young people, Nisha also referred to it, in a learning process which leads them to the space that they wish to. And I just want to, you asked that question, what do you see, where do you see young people coming in? And I want to bring here, if you have 2 minutes, just to give an idea of what young people are doing. So there are young people who are heavily engaged, not purely in the sense of just, okay, yes, we will go and vote, but actually saying what they wish to see in the manifestos of parties across party lines. And I just want to share 3 promises that the Unmanifesto campaign young people are voting for online on Youth Ki Awaaz, which is a partner to this event, as well as on ground with the 40 partners that they are meeting young people, 14, they hope to outreach to 14 lakh young people across the country through different means. So these are some of the promises, and they're quite telling on what young people want, which is also important. So these are the promises they wish to see in the manifestos, and they are going to political parties and presenting these, and they will be doing it over the next 6 months. So the first one is make education relevant and impactful by allocating 5% GDP on education, consult students before making any change in the education sector, and reservations to include financial criteria along with caste. This is one whole section on education. There is one whole section on reforms in the health sector, which is on health services, including patent sanctions of medicines, which should be stricter, and the period should be reduced. These are the top 3 promises. We've collected promises, 5,000 promises so far. I'm just telling you the top 3 promises that were voted online. And the last one I'd like to read in detail because it's quite specific, and it's interesting that how specific the promises have come out. Very sharp thinking and nuanced. It says, take the following steps to ensure safety and dignity of women. Fast track courts in every district. 33% reservation for women in all police forces. Raise legal marriageable age from 18 to 21. Proper implementation of Justice Verma report. Amend AFSPA in the light of Supreme Court judgment that it should not apply in case of rape and murder. Provide and maintain clean toilets in all public spaces. Top votes by young people in the country today. So they are really saying what they want.
Great, thank you. So I think this is a good opportunity. Given the time at hand, we can now take some questions from the audience to any of the panelists.
First question is, when you say that to go up, like in a normal life, you can't go up directly, you can't become a CEO directly. So even in politics, you should do that. First become a councillor, then MLA, then MP. Don't you think that's quite an idealistic view? Because in real life, if as Dr. Kumar pointed out, our 70% of youth who are in parliament, they are offsprings, they are children of various practicing politicians. First. Second thing, we are talking about youth participating in large number in the coming Delhi Assembly election and the Lok Sabha election in 2014. Do we have an idea whether they are aware what they are going to vote for? They might, parties might have been quite successful in mobilizing them, but can we expect that they are aware enough to vote for the right candidate?
Yeah, so your second question is to all of us, right? Okay, so about the first question, you see, I think, when I said that you have to start and learn and grow and then reach the next level, this is how it happens in all developed democracies. I mean, India is different because we have such huge entry barriers to go and contest an election and then win it, is when we see that inheriting the seat becomes much easier to win that seat. And it's not that young people don't try or others don't try. If you, in my election, there were 16 of us who were standing for the same, position. It's just that people don't win unless you have, because I talked about entry barriers, and we know all the different types of entry barriers to win an election. But this is natural. This is how democracies across the world function. This is how MPs go up to be MPs. They start at their city level. They start engaging in politics, and it takes them years to reach where they do. So I don't think it's unrealistic to expect that and you know, as education gets more and more, you know, as we get more and more educated, this is the way how it will be. And to the second question, you were asking if you know, does the youth know what it wants to vote for? I think you have the answer in Ashraf's. You know, she just talked about what they're asking. Somebody has to listen to it. They're already saying it. It's out there. It's in. I talked about these buzzes. It's already there. We just need to listen to it.
Taking the leads from the co-panelist here, Nisha ji has already explained about very nicely about the narratives from the two class of people, public and the bureaucrats. And the statistics is already available. And the mission that has been already started as explained by the madam. So it's just like launching the project with the market research study is available. So a youth should take a lead. And you mentioned that it's a knowledge that we don't have the knowledge. I would say again, coming to that Nisha ji, that it starts, nobody can become it directly as a CEO, but has to start from the manager. It's not a overnight that the knowledge gets enriched or something like that. So this is the time, taking it as a career and with this all statistics, mission and data available, one should take it as a career by the youth to become have the political career. And now the question is to Mr. Sanjay that specifically as per the latest guidelines and the judgment about the option given that none of the above, I would like to know the study whether any carried out on that aspect. Thank you very much.
We are carrying out the study in all the 4 states. We don't have the data as such with us, but I can tell you this nota, none of the above. My guess would be when those are counted, it would be less than 5%. It would be in the range of 1 or 2% when it is counted. Nobody in this country, no voter want to waste his vote because that has no impact. You say none of the above, it has no one is going to listen to that. So it's going to be in the range of 2%, not more than that. This is my wild guess.
Sir, you came up with some wonderful statistics and which pointed in one direction that, you know, in spite of youth having their views and doing all that stuff, it has not converted into electoral point of view and the votes. So my question to you is, what do you think, what have been the reasons that why youth, you know, coming for demonstration or, you know, being active in other ways, but why it doesn't get converted into the electoral thing? And if, you know, you think those similar reasons will exist for 2014 as well?
Really, I don't have the answer why youth are not, on the election day, at least it doesn't come out from the study, that on the election day, why don't the youth turn up to vote? But some hints I do have, which is to say, when it comes to participation in election campaign, political activities, they participate enthusiastically. But when it comes to what Nisha has already mentioned, barriers, entry barriers, when it comes to everyone has an aspiration in politics. If you are with the party, you have been working for the party, you aspire to contest election because that is the final thing you want to do in politics. But when you see that there is an entry barrier, there are people who have done less for the parties, but they get easy. It is easier for them to get a ticket. So the interest goes up, and beyond a point, after a point, it goes down because then they see there is no equal playing field. And that is one of the big reasons why they don't participate in elections when it comes to voting. But there are other reasons. They are more mobile. They are likely to be more mobile compared to voters of other age group. So on the election day, they are likely to be more mobile compared to others. So less likely to vote on the election day. Several other small reasons, but these are the 2 big reasons which I found out from my own experiences.
So on a lighter note, I would also say that the youth don't vote on election day is because it's usually a holiday. So they end up doing other fun stuff. And at least in Bombay, we've seen that. You know, when there's an election, people go off to the outskirt areas, you know, the nearby resorts, etc. And, you know, forget about all this great stuff about, you know, manifestos and campaigning, etc.
As you know that these days Election Commission has a program which they say SWEEP, which is Systematic Voter Awareness. We did that study for them in the Delhi Assembly elections. Before elections, they carry out this program. who are the people who don't vote and what are the reasons they don't vote, and also making suggestions. So one of the suggestions we made, besides various other suggestions, not to keep voting on Friday or Monday, not making it a
Absolutely.
long weekend.
Absolutely.
That's, if you make a long weekend, there the turnout is going to be low. So,
Right.
and this is what Kumar has already indicated.
Right.
And sir, one more question. Looking at the pre-poll surveys, which few figures about the AAP party, you know, and they're doing phenomenal, if not majority. So, but if I look at past, you know, there have been a lot of parties, like if you talk about in Lok Satta party by JP, you know, in Hyderabad, and then a recent party, Jago party, which came up with that, you know, Youth for Equality. Or, you know, you talk about even BJP when they came in. It took them years and years to, you know, set up and come up with a seat, and or probably, you know, for BJP it was decades. So why you think AAP has been able to strike the chords with the people and they're getting some fantastic vote share in Delhi? What do you think? Why is that, and why the other parties were not able to do that in past?
As you would have noticed, there are various opinion polls in Delhi, and there are differences of opinion even with regard to what would be the estimate for Aam Aadmi Party. I would say the estimates are much higher at this moment compared to final what is going to be their vote share, because when most of these surveys were being conducted, there's a lot of sympathy among the people for the party, but when it comes to voting, my suspicion is that it will go down. And also remember what I said earlier, a lot of youths are associated with the party. So you go and ask them question whether you are going to vote for which party. There is a tendency among them, because they are the supporters of the party, that they say that they would vote for Aam Aadmi Party. But remember, I said enrollment ratio is lower among the youth. So many of these youth who are, you know, working for the party for last 2, 3, 4, 6 months, many of them are not voter yet. So my suspicion is the proportion of votes which various surveys has estimated for Aam Aadmi Party, they would get less vote compared to what are the estimates. But still, it would be a very good performance if they end up with, my own estimate is they might end up with 18-20% vote, which would be a fantastic performance for a political party which has come up just 1 year back.
So thank you so much to all our panelists for a very insightful session, some good discussion points, some good data, some good facts, some good ideas from everyone.